Coming to you from the Strings and Things studio in Ventura, California. I'm Karen.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Ann.
Yay! And this is the Strings Unraveled Book Club.
Woohoo!
Hello, book club.
Hello. How's it going?
It's going good.
Cool. What are you working on, Ann? Got
I
some hot green something in your hand.
The color's called neon green.
Whoa, that's a very exciting name.
It's a Kelborn woolen called Perennial. The yarn.
Uh-huh.
I am working on the fifth book of 52 Weeks of Socks from Lane Magazine.
Oh, cool.
I am not committing to making all 52. It would be interesting to do a pair of socks a week.
That would be a lot of knitting.
It would be.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I did finish week 1 in week 1.
Okay.
So this is the second sock. It's by Natalia Vasilieva.
Okay.
And it's a great book. I've always wanted this book, but it's a hardbound book that's like $50.
Uh-huh.
And they reissued it in a softbound that was
nice.
$19.99.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited about it. This yarn is delicious.
Cool.
And it is a fun, beautiful color.
That is a good color. I saw somebody outside wearing boots with like bright green socks underneath, and I was like, that looks cute. So
Yeah.
I approve.
I would approve of that as well. Hopefully I'll be able to join that person.
I've seen people with like those, maybe just said this, are you talking about the clear?
The clear Ugg
I'm
boots.
not, but yeah, I have seen those.
I kind of want those.
I want those just if I have really nice socks to show off, because, you know, if I'm going to wear those boots, they're going to completely cover everything of my really cool socks.
Yeah. What are you working on, Katie?
I am working on Halu, or I don't know how you say it. I'm saying Halu. It's a Caitlin Hunter pattern. And, that's okay. I'm working on the neckline ribbing. The yarn is Pearl Soho Good Wool in the color Wild Mustard.
I like that yarn, and that color is great.
Yeah, last time I bought this yarn, it was only in natural colors, so I was excited when I looked it up that they had it in non-natural colors too.
So is that in your range of yellows?
What do you mean?
Because it reads as like a golden brown to me.
Yeah.
Does it read as a yellow to you?
I would say it's I would categorize it as a yellow. It's definitely a mustard, like
it's what it
like
is.
a
Yeah.
stone ground mustard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
Not
wild mustard, like the plant, I think is a pretty good.
Not like the French's American mustard.
That's like the color of my stitch markers.
Wallpaper paste.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it in certain applications.
Yeah.
Wallpaper paste mustard.
But I just started the neckline ribbing. I'm excited to get to the lace. So
So it's the same neckline-ish as Easy V.
it's like exactly the same. I think she just plugged in lace instead of color work in the yoke.
It looks like a fun neckline to make.
Yeah, it's going pretty quickly, which is awesome. So, Karen, what are you working on?
I am making a match to my first Marilla mitt.
Woo! Second mitt syndrome.
And I'm on the thumb. So
Woohoo.
I've already done the fingerless mitt portion and the convertible top, and I'm on the thumb.
You're practically done.
That's
I'm
awesome.
practically done. I took it to Disneyland, and I worked on it at Disneyland a little bit.
Did it rain on you in Disneyland?
Not much.
Good.
I mean, it
Did
was
keep the crowds away?
pouring in Fillmore. Yeah, when I looked the day before, it was like only a 5% chance in Anaheim, and we had sunny skies, and I thought it'd be cold, so I had layers upon layers, of which I always, the first thing we do when we get in, I always rent a little locker, because I know I want something. I want a jacket at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to be dragging it around all day.
Right on.
I mean, when we had little ones in strollers, we could shove a bunch of stuff. So much stuff in those strollers that they would tip backwards a little bit. So.
I have been there.
My strategy is usually not to bring a sweatshirt, so I have an excuse to buy something.
Yeah. Okay.
And spend $70 on a sweatshirt.
Okay. In the past, when we've gone, I've been very, very disappointed because they hardly even carried one single XLs, much less beyond. But this time they had multiple number XL. And I'm like, okay, well, that is really nice. But I didn't like anything well enough to spend the money on it.
Yeah.
I thought for sure, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I went there with an idea. I I like a sweatshirt or a hoodie. And if I found one I liked, I would fork over the bucks. And I almost bought one the first time because they still had the Christmas stuff up. So they had the Christmas sweatshirts. But I'm like, oh, if I get this right away when we first walk in, then I'm done. So I'll wait. And by the end of the night, I talked myself out of it. So
that's not fun.
But in the meantime, it was nice. We usually for Christmas or my birthday, my birthday, my oldest takes me and he and I go together, just the two of us. So he and I had drinks at the bar in Star Wars. I know there's a name, and I'm not nerdy enough to really know the name properly, but I had the really cool stuff with the alcoholic peach foam.
Yum.
It was delicious, and I only had the one because that's dangerous because you cannot taste the alcohol, but it was almost as good as the peach Bellini sake I'd had before.
I've never drunk at Disneyland.
You never had the opportunity to until recently.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah.
There was no alcohol until recently?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, this sounds real fun.
You can in California Adventure, but you couldn't at Disneyland for a long time.
So what's interesting is if you make a reservation and you pay extra, then you could sit at a booth. If you're just a walk-in, or even if you have a reservation but you don't pay extra, then it's standing at the table, standing at these tall tables that you share with one or two other groups. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting having strangers try to make conversation.
I don't like that.
I don't really like that, but they're not really very big tables, so they're just enough to have an appetizer, which was great. And we were there when DJ Rex came on and did his little spiel. You know the little one from Star Tours?
Yeah.
Well, since he's no longer in Star Tours, he's now a DJ.
How cute.
And it's
I'm
really
glad
cute.
they took his pilot's license away. It terrified me.
Yeah, he's kind of scary as a DJ, too. He gets a little shocked. And we were waiting for the part where if they've got tanks with creatures in them, that at some point, they're supposed to have like a little, the light's supposed to flash, supposed to be like a power shortage. The bartender's supposed to bang on something and all the tanks come alive. But that didn't happen.
Aww.
But it was a great time.
That's fun.
Cool.
So anyway, I was working on my Marilla mitts because it's a small project. And when I first got to security, she's like, "Oh, knitting needles." I'm like, "Knitting needles are allowed, but just to show you, these are small."
Yeah.
Because I have like the really small the Xiaogu shorty twists. So I'm like, you're not going to be able to stab anything with something that's only like 6 inches long.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's
flexible.
The world we live in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway.
they should be afraid of knitters, but
No, they should be afraid of knitters that don't have knitting.
yeah.
Because that's when I'm not patient.
Right.
So anyway.
Cool.
Well, those are turning out real cute, Karen. There you go. All right. What did we read this month?
We read The Bookwoman's Daughter by Michele Richardson.
Okay. I like her right at the beginning because her name is spelled correctly. Michele with one L.
With one L. Yeah.
Are there 2 L's in a Michelle?
After
some people
the
do.
majority
the
of people.
Beatles. Some people. The Beatles misspelled Michelle in My Michelle. And from then on, people started spelling it with 2 L's. The appropriate French spelling is 1 L.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the feminization of Michelle. Michel.
Well, I have some interesting information. I did a little research into the author. And what's really interesting, because she has a connection to the story.
Yep.
Well, first of all, before I do that, I should probably just tell people a little bit about this.
Where's our lengthy synopsis?
Okay. From the back of the book. In the ruggedness of the beautiful Kentucky mountains, Honey Lovett has always known that the old ways can make a hard life harder. As the daughter of the famed blue-skinned Troublesome Creek pack-horse librarian, Honey and her family have been hiding from the law all her life. But when her mother and father are imprisoned, Honey realizes she must fight to stay free or risk being sent away for good. Picking up her mother's old pack-horse library route, Honey begins to deliver books to the remote hollers of Appalachia. Honey is looking to prove that she doesn't need anyone telling her how to survive, but the route can be treacherous, and some folks aren't as keen to let a woman pave her own way. If Honey wants to bring the freedom books provide to the families who need it most, she's going to have to fight for her place and along the way learn that the extraordinary women who run the hills and hollers can make all the difference in the world. So one of the things I was looking into the author, and since reading this book, I have just like today started the book that came before this one. I like that they reference each other. The second one references the first book, which is the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, but it gets a standalone book. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have one to enjoy the other.
Right. I appreciated that too. I didn't feel like I was missing out from any other part of the story.
So what's interesting about the author is that as a child, she was placed in a Kentucky orphanage, St. Thomas St. Vincent Orphan Asylum. Great name. In 2004, she and her sisters, along with 40 other plaintiffs who had lived in the institution run by the Sisters of Charity Order in the Roman Catholic Church, sued for damages suffered through abuse by their caretakers from the 1930s to the 1970s. And she recounted her experiences in her memoir, The Unbreakable Child, which I think was going to be another book on my list. But I thought it was really interesting that she has a personal connection to the people of this area, and she has a PDF 22 page long PDF of not just book selections, but also there's recipes from that area, mocktails and cocktails, and just a little more information about her and why it's important to her. Like I had to look up blue skinned and what blue skinned.
I had to keep looking that up and looking it up and looking it up and looking it up, because like mostly you get, when you Google it, you get this guy who took colloidal silver to show that it turns people. He did it like as a PSA to show people that it turns you blue and you don't go back. And he was doing it as like a deterrent.
Okay,
and he's
I've taken it, but I don't take that much.
Yeah, well, he turned as blue as like a Smurf, and you have to like kind of look because there's like hardly any representations of the blues of Kentucky.
Yeah,
which I was so grateful at the end of the audiobook. There is like her telling her story a little bit, and that like she also was looking everywhere for picture representations of this group of people.
Yeah, so when they talk about blue skinned, they're talking about like ordinarily when people blush, or they say he got red in the face. When we experience strong emotions, the blood cells come to the surface. But with people with, I forget the name. Do you remember?
Mesothelioma. I gotta look it up.
Okay, well you look it up. I'll keep talking about it. What happens is methylhemoglobinemia. There's a lot of iron, I believe, or no? What is it?
Have a certain red blood cell, or you have a certain blood cell that doesn't carry, and by having too much of it, it doesn't carry as much oxygen in the blood.
That's what it is. So when people who have this feel like a strong emotion, their hands turn cold and face and lips turn cobalt blue.
I think her mom like always appeared blue is what I was getting from the story. And she only had like spotty in her hands.
Some people have it more than others. Some people outgrow it. And they talk in starting the first book, which is the story of her mother and how her mother came to be. And a little bit of its references Honey, and when she's little, but I haven't figured out her connection yet because they're not direct kinship.
Right. My first mother and my first father in this book.
Yeah,
I know. I was hoping the first book tells us how Blewett got to be her mom.
It does, and it talks about how they got the name Blewett. Although they talk about this in this book too.
I'm feeling like there's going to be like this really rich connection to some of these good characters in this book.
Yeah, very much so. But they're considered coloreds, and just like black people of that time period who were not allowed to be certain places, they will they will physically harm and try to kill you. There's a preacher whose job is to hunt down the blues because he thinks that they're an abomination from Satan. So, yeah, it's pretty awful. I don't think they're in pain. They don't
Nope.
feel, people who have this condition are not in any discomfort other than the social anxiety and the social issues that happen because of it.
Say, until Honey's mother is imprisoned, I don't think she had any pain. But after that, I think she was in a lot of pain.
But not because of being blue,
no,
but because of the mistreatment
yep.
that happened to her while she was there. Okay. This is also during a section of Kentucky where it is a very violent, bloody coal mine wars, where people were sent into the coal mines, and when that old song where you owe your soul to the company store, a lot of that happens too. Anyway, so I like she does talk about the let's get into the questions.
Okay, you didn't ask me what I thought of the book.
What did you think about the book?
I loved it. It was so good. So good.
It was so good. Did you want to read it? Go
best
back
book,
a second time?
Best book of 2023. But really, 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 I really like this book.
Of the books I've picked, this might be one of my better picks.
Ooh. You picked some good ones, but this one was very
and
good.
I picked some.
We've all picked some stinkers, Karen.
Some stinkers. But this one,
this is very good.
loved. I got so invested in all of the characters, including the donkey, the mule. Oh, I can't even think of her name. Oh, I'll get to it.
It's Ginia. Which
Junia. Yeah, Junia. I don't.
Who is the female apostle? There's supposedly a hint at a female apostle, which it's true. I know that there are hints that there was a female apostle. Like everyone was.
But maybe
told to go out.
So maybe the information about that female apostle
is in this next book.
Is not in the Bible as we know it. But you know how like there's books that were not put in the standard
that's
Bible.
A Catholic thing, though, the apocryphal books. So I doubt that the Kentuckians are
there. Well, the author grew up in a Roman Catholic orphanage.
That's true. That is
true. And her mother.
Can I see how Ginia's written? Because I've been wanting to Google this the whole time.
I actually have the physical book as well as the audio. So
Junia.
It's like the word, like Junia. That's how I imagined it.
Junia, the first woman apostle. There's a book about it.
Oh,
Romans 16:7. So it is in the accepted Bible.
Romans 16:7. Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. Okay, so one of the first questions she has in her thing is interesting. Discuss the types of circumstances in which a child or parent would ask for a declaration of emancipation. I still didn't go over kind of what happened. The basic synopsis. So just jump right in. Okay.
You read the back of the book.
I read the back of the book. I don't know. There's so much. I know it's my book choice, but can you give the basic synopsis?
Okay,
yeah, please do it.
I would love to get the book report. Okay. So, poor sweet Honey, which it took me a little while because this is set in the South to understand that even though she does introduce herself, but when you're listening to the audiobook, you're not always like keeping up with those details. Mm-hmm. It took me a while for me to understand that they were calling her Honey because that's her name and not because it's the South.
Yeah. Bless your heart.
Yeah. Honey. So, Honey, it opens on her escape from the law because her parents are about to be arrested for violating miscegenation laws, which I didn't have a grip on exactly what was happening with her and her mom suffering from this genetic disorder or genetic marker, honestly, because it's not much of a disorder. It doesn't keep them from functioning in life except through people's bigotry. Miscegenation laws are preventing the mixing of colors. So that meant that the blues of Kentucky were not allowed to marry outside of or to mix with any other colors of people.
Or even have, if the law had their way, they wouldn't have children whatsoever.
Yeah, which this This disorder did proliferate because of intermarrying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's not going to always be the case as a genetic marker. Anyway, so her parents are preparing to face the law, and they do not want the law to get their hands on her because she would go to a work camp until she is 21 years old if she is caught.
And up to this point, the law doesn't really know that she exists yet. There's just rumors.
Her mother has carefully hidden because Honey only shows this trait in her hands. So she is running from the law. Her parents get picked up. She spends a little time hiding from the law and a social worker who wants to send her to the work camp with her family and like her extended family of friends. There's a moonshiner, dangerous Jim. Yeah, and then her 91-year-old surrogate grandmother, whose name is Loretta or Retta.
Retta.
Okay, so Retta agrees to be her guardian. They go to court to get her guardianship. The 91-year-old lady shames the judge into acknowledging that Loretta would be a good guardian. And I can't wait in the other book because I'm sure he's mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Because what we learn of him in this book is I'm sure he's a feisty child in the first book. Retta wins the guardianship. And our dear sweet Honey thinks she's safe. Honey goes home with Retta. Retta dies. Retta is experiencing heart failure, and there's nothing to save her. And she dies within, like, a week.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So now Honey is without a guardian and hiding from the law again. She finds that the library is reviving the pack mule library program, pack horse library program, which had been a WPA project, which her mother had done. Her mother was a valued part of the community, bringing literacy throughout rural areas of Kentucky. We have a riveting moment of her mom's boss is like, well, I think this other girl wanted to, but then she couldn't. I think this other girl wanted to, but she can't because she can't even ride a horse. And ultimately, our girl Honey gets the job. Honey starts disseminating literature. I skipped something important. Honey meets Pearl right as she's escaping from the law. Honey spends the day taking care of Pearl and getting Pearl to her fire lookout.
She's the first female they're up in this giant tower, and their job is, and there's a radio up there, and their job is to look out for fires that can spark from lightning or from people going off in the woods and not putting out their campfire. And she got the job by beating out a couple of local guys who are not happy about that.
Yep.
And
but she's extremely qualified. So she earned her position.
She has a degree or something in this. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I have to pause there because Honey has just been ripped apart from her family.
Yeah.
She runs into Dangerous Jim and he's like, I'm showing Pearl to her place. And Honey just takes over, guiding her to it's on this super traumatic day. And, side note, they become friends, and that's an important part of the story. All right, our girl lost her guardianship. She goes she starts her job. She meets this sad woman who is clearly a battered woman. Yeah. Her son has fallen down the well. Honey uses Jinya, her mule, to help save this child. She climbs in the well, and she saves little Johnny. And agrees to start bringing library materials. Okay, we've got the saving. Honey's doing her job.
In the meantime, she also has a lawyer.
The lawyer is trying to get her a new guardian. And then, Honey's out doing her job, she finds an old newspaper that mentions the idea of being an emancipated minor. And I was boggled by the idea that our heroine, at just barely turning 16 years old, she's bringing the legal strategy to her lawyer. Granted, emancipated minors are not, they're still a rare thing. And maybe it just was so rare it wasn't going to come up for him. But
Well,
she brings the legal strategy.
she's a female being represented, a young female being represented by a lawyer who, and kind of pro bono. He's not really. Is he getting paid?
Well, I'm sure he's an appointed lawyer.
He's. Oh no, it's someone from the family. It's not.
No, he's not appointed.
Not someone from the court. From what I understand, so I'm not sure. It's something her parents were able to make arrangements for.
Yeah, because her parents are perfectly upstanding, hardworking people.
They're hardworking, but they had already gotten in trouble with the law before when they first got married, and so they were hiding because of the laws, and the law just caught up with them.
Yep.
In the meantime, they'd been hiding this girl and homeschooling her and teaching her. The mother had a faith of sorts, and that's why the Bible was very important to her. Who else was in? Besides the 90-year-old guardian, the 90-year-old guardian had a son.
I just want to say real quick.
Yeah.
So sometimes we read these books, and each of us have come back and been like, and I think this is I think you say this more often than anyone, Katie. I kept waiting for something to happen, and nothing happens. Like, what was happening in this book, right?
Uh-huh.
It's just like a laundry list of a day in the life or something like that. This book was so action-packed. One thing happens, and you think, okay, now we're going to go on to the, idyllic part of her life. No.
There was nothing ideal.
No rest for Honey and the people
trauma.
around her. Okay, so which guardian? They're looking for a new guardian. She's doing her job. She develops this beautiful friendship with Pearl. Are any of the questions gonna lay out? Because we don't need to get into super hyper detail of each step. Or I could.
They're more okay. The questions are more about how is this related. Here's this topic that they touch on, and let's ask more about it. So
along the way, she meets the other female characters.
I'm gonna interrupt you for a moment. Yes. So, Grandma, what's her name? Retta, who is as sweet as can be,
has a son. Was not in great
condition. Has a good-for-nothing son who has no honor. He doesn't mean to be a bad person, but he just is kind of aimless in his life. And he doesn't honor his mother. Her mother. I think he's the kind of son that she's.
It's not her son.
It's not her son.
He's a nephew.
Oh, the nephew. So
Retta
he's a relative.
was also a surrogate parent for Alfonso.
Oh, okay,
I think that's right.
Whatever his name is, and she had set it up as that
verbally
that the house was supposed to go to Honey. But of course, not only no sooner does she die, but the son sells it off.
Nephew.
The nephew sells it off for hardly anything, and she comes home from her route to find people living in her space.
Yep.
Already.
Yep. So, Good for Nothing makes her homeless. And she goes back to her house because she was afraid to go to her house because she's afraid the law would find her there. So they figure that after Retta was made her guardian, that nobody's going to be looking for her to be a guardianless minor. So she's going. I want to, because the next things that happen are because she meets these other people. She meets Bonnie, who's a female minor, a widow, a miner's widow who becomes a minor, who has a little baby, and Grandma watches him during the day. Bonnie, that's Bonnie. And the male miners hate her because there's a ringleader. Then we have, what is her name? Her name is weird. Gillis. What's K? Mrs. Gillis.
Mrs. Gillis, yeah.
She's Johnny's mom. She's the beaten down housewife with the son who falls down the well. Then we have, is it Emma is the medicine woman?
Oh, the traveling nurse.
No, that's Amara.
Okay,
I might be mixing them up.
So that's something else.
Amara is a frontier nurse who witnesses Mrs. Gillis being beaten and knows that Honey saved the boy, and knows that Mr. Gillis is a good for nothing.
Guy LaBelle.
How's that one spelled?
Guyla. Guy LaBelle. I'm
I
putting
see
it out
it.
in the book.
Guy
Okay.
Bell. Okay.
Like Guy with La. Guyla.
It's a real special name.
Yeah.
Rolls right off the tongue. Okay, who's next? Oh, then there's a little girl, Renna, who has a rooster named Tommy, who follows her around and protects her.
I love that rooster. That rooster's mean.
That rooster is a hero.
Is a hero.
Then there is Francis, who is Honey's kind of love interest. It's the first boy who's shown interest in her. And
Well, from what I understand, they grew up together. And Francis is not the
No.
one with the girlfriend
no,
who's
that's Carson.
Oh, Carson.
Carson
Okay.
is
the
Dangerous Jim's
Dangerous Jim.
son.
Dangerous Jim is a moonshiner,
Yeah.
so he cannot really come out and speak up for her because he will put his own
livelihood.
Livelihood. Yeah.
Francis is a nice boy who likes her. And then, what is Gillis's first name?
I'm still looking it up.
So, Mr. Gillis, who I'd rather call other names, is our antagonist. One of Honey's antagonists.
And the brother to the other
Robbie,
who missed out on that
Robbie is employed by the Forestry Service. He's another lookout.
Oh,
Robbie wanted to get Gillis the job.
That's right. And they do all kinds of awful things to try to burn her out
Yes.
and make her leave.
So, synopsis. It's a synopsis, right? So, our girl, Honey, is without anyone to care for her in the world. She's working hard to show that she can be an emancipated miner, and she has this bad man in town who is hurting women everywhere.
Yeah.
And she suspects has murdered or done something bad to his wife. And he has also tried to murder her and her best friend, Pearl. And then hilarity ensues. Wait, no, it's not funny. It's all tears. So all of those trials and tribulations happen. On the day of her emancipation hearing, Bonnie has made friends with Tommy the Rooster. Bonnie gets Tommy the Rooster to attack Gillis.
I love
Tommy the Rooster literally tears Gillis to shreds. He loses an eye. He gets an infection. And that is the opportunity.
Glorious payback.
So her emancipation hearing gets postponed, and Honey is able to, she tells her lawyer what she thinks has happened to Gillis, to Mrs. Gillis. And the lawyer gets the law, not the sheriff, because the sheriff is Gillis's cousin.
Yep.
And they go and serve
Gillis.
Perry Gillis is our monster.
Villain.
Okay, so the lawyer gets the law to come and search the house for Mrs. Gillis, because she just thinks that Mrs. Gillis is in the house hurt. Mrs. Gillis is actually in the same well that almost claimed her son. And
because he
threw her in the well, and he cemented over the well. And our girl Honey has to identify Mrs. Gillis at the bottom of the well. And Honey realizes that Johnny has seen his father murder Mrs. Gillis. And Johnny is also a hero because he tells other grown-ups, Mommy, well, you saved Mommy from the well? He tells the grown-ups that his mommy's in the well.
Because he remembers, Bookwoman help me.
Yeah. Bookwoman saved him from the well, which he also told other grown-ups. So there are people who can corroborate her good deeds. Okay. Perry dies. Yay!
Yay! No, and there is no one who is sad about
sad.
that.
So now she's alleviated her fears that he's going to come out and try to burn Pearl down from her lookout again. She is no longer afraid he's going to try to murder her in the streets. She is no longer afraid that the little girl and her rooster are in danger. And Bonnie, who I feel like it gets hinted, I mean, he is physically assaulting Bonnie, but I feel like some other things have happened in the mine.
Oh, yeah.
Under Bonnie's, under the leadership of Perry Gillis, he is a ringleader to make the other men hurt Bonnie in the well, in the mines. After Perry is gone, the miners are nicer. I don't know if they're ever nice.
He was the real catalyst for, not catalyst, he was the real instigator for the bad behavior, and he gave them courage to behave badly, and he kind of egged them on. Without him to take all the attention, they would be responsible for their own bad behavior. So they kind of also, they kind of got afraid of Bonnie because
she got Tommy to kill Perry.
Yeah, any woman who can convince, they're so afraid that she's going to sick the rooster on them.
Well, our little girl Renna, who's probably like 6 or 7, she learns the rooster calls that the other birds make, and she makes a call that the author's describing as hens in trouble. And that is what launches Tommy into his deadly attack.
There's one other female that we forgot. Doctor's wife.
Oh, I love Doctor's wife. Her love language is food.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
and she understands English perfectly, but she chooses not to speak English, and she only speaks Swedish back to people.
Yes. It's a weird marriage because he doesn't speak her language.
No, but she understands him perfectly.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, as a language learner, I understand a lot of Spanish, especially if someone speaks slowly to me, but I'm not confident to speak it back. So that's my point of view, is I'm not confident to speak it back. The doctor says that she doesn't want to.
It's just so interesting. There's a point where she is actually staying with the doctor for a day or so because it's just too long a drive to get. They need his testimony for something. No, he's going to help her go visit her parents.
Yeah, he's going to examine mom.
And it's too far for her to go home and come back because it's a multi-hour trip. He has a car. Well, when he has a car, and he stays in a really nice. She's from the hills in old houses where you can see through the cracks, to the space underneath the house. And he's living in basically a mansion. She's in a room all to herself with its own, chamber pot. It's like, wow.
Ooh. That's something I enjoyed too, because my mom was born in rural Minnesota in a time where people did have flush plumbing and stuff, but they didn't, because they were in a little cabin in the woods in Minnesota, much like was being described. So the idea of someone not being up to date in contemporary modernizations, because this is 1952-53, so like she shouldn't have necessarily had to have a chamber pot. Like what you're describing is he probably just lived in like a nice townhouse,
townhouse compared to the outhouse that they wouldn't have. Because I don't believe that Retta's house had. There's no electricity. They still had candle.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I love this little. Towards the end, he says, "You're welcome to join me for supper." Millie left me more than enough, because she had packed a meal for them to go on their trip to go see her folks. Obliged, but I'd like to get home before dark. I couldn't wait to get out the door and read Mama's letter, find out more about her job. Wait, honey, Millie would dish me up a sinner's funeral if I left you here without feeding you.
I like that.
He turned and walked down the foyer toward the kitchen, and in a moment returned with a poke. I'm not sure what a poke is.
It's a bag.
Okay.
She explained she tried not to do over too much vernacularization, but there were words she couldn't not use.
Yeah. Anyway, so so we'll talk later.
And ultimately, after all of this, the doctor helps her mom to get early release. She gets to be a librarian while she's in prison. She's meant to come home in the fall of that year. He makes it so that she can communicate and gets proper medical care. And in the end of it all, we finally get the emancipation hearing. Our girl Honey, she does something that lawyers are supposed to do. She presents precedents.
Oh, yeah.
When she talks of the other young man in their county who got emancipated at 14. And our fantastic judge. First, he lets the bad guys say all these horrible things and impugn Honey's character. And he gives them a lot of liberty. He overrules our good lawyers' objections and just lets the state present their case in wild hearsay and misrepresentation of the facts. And then he gives Honey's lawyer the same freedom to do so. And Honey's lawyer is able to gather some character witnesses who portray her true actions of her heroism, her steadfastness, the service she does to the community. And then he gives us the ruling, and she is emancipated. And it's a little touch and go, because at some point he says, I'm inclined not to emancipate her.
The back of the book has pictures.
Oh, I'm going to have to look at those. And then at the end, the lawyer gets up and says how her mother changed his life by sharing Hardy Boy Mysteries with him. And that gave him the sense that he wanted to work in the law, and it completely changed his life and set the course of his life as it is now. And she's emancipated. And he asked for the new Hardy Boys book.
Yeah, I didn't like the author did such a great job of making you really not like that judge.
Yeah, until
you realize, okay, he's given
this isn't going to be fair. It's not going to be fair.
He's kind of giving the wrong side, the bad side. I don't know, enough rope for them to hang themselves with.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I loved every minute of this book, even though some of it was really hard to get through, because you're just so sad and worried for her. And she's just such a nice, truly nice kid, faced with adversities that no one should have to get through. But she just keeps facing life and solving her problems the best she can.
Did you talk about the head librarian?
No.
A little bit.
She's she's important, but she's not one of our heroines.
No, she's not. She's not.
I mean, she is.
I will tell you that whatever you think about her in this book, you will not like her in the first book.
I had that.
She must have sense. That she is not a good person in the first book, but something must happen that gives her a change of heart. Yes. So I don't know what that is yet.
Honey insinuates that she did not get off
Miss
to a
Forster.
Good, yes. Honey's mother did not get off to a good start with Miss Forster. But by the end, they're good friends, and she changes Miss Forster. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure the other book is probably just even more rot.
Yeah.
Because she wears her blue on her face, literally. Mm-hmm. There's all this character development that's happened, even though this book stands on its own very well, where like people had a real arc to get where they are today.
So I will ask a couple of questions. So if you get the physical copy of the book, and I just have the physical paperback. In fact, I got the Bookwoman's Daughter first, and then now I'm back and getting the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, but it's neat because they have images from the Pack Horse Library Project, which was a real thing.
Yeah.
So in the time frame in just the short time frame of Honey's life, they went from her mother getting $28 a month, which was still good money, to Honey's getting like $100, a little more than $100, a month. Mm-hmm. But they have a picture of Bonnie, or not Bonnie, but someone like Bonnie.
Yeah.
Woman in the mines, smoking. Because you could do that. There's a picture of the Frontier Nursing Services. That's got to be kind of a hard life, too, because these are, whether you're the forestry woman or the frontier nurse or the miner, for the most part, you're either a widow, you're a single woman providing for yourself in a world that does not think that women have any right to be taking jobs for men.
Books. Yeah, on the books. Kentucky is against feminism.
Oh, yeah. There's a picture of the fire tower. Y'all can't see this, but you can imagine this. And if you can get a copy of it, if you look up,
That's exactly what I imagined it to be.
Yeah, like. It is really high up, and it's just this big, long tower. Was it wood to begin with, or just the latter part was wood?
No, the latter was wrought iron. That's why they had to get a welder out to fix it.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so let's get to questions. Oh, wait, is that a picture of her horse? No, that's somebody else. Never mind, because Kentucky is known for the horses, which is kind of interesting. Okay. So one of the things that struck me as the cruelty is that certain children, if you didn't have normal, acceptable, honorable, according to society, parents, if you ever needed to, if you were an orphan, you were no better than a criminal because you literally went into a prison for children. It was a children's prison.
The sins of your parents, like,
you did hard
what did
labor.
Honey ever do? You know?
Not only that, but even though she was trying to get to, she only had 18 months from the time that her parents were arrested to try to outrun the law before she was of age to be considered an adult. However, that would have gotten her to 17 or 18?
18 is what
that would have gotten her to 8. She's aiming to get to 18. However, if they get a hold of her and send her to the children's prison, they will have her till she's 21.
Yep.
How is that even? It's
because age of majority only came along because they were recruiting 18-year-olds. Because 21 was the age of majority for much of the United States until there was rumbling of sending 18-year-olds to war. So if you couldn't vote and you didn't have a say, it's kind of like not being a part of the representative government, and that's why the age of majority moved to 18. But 21 it was adulthood before that. Okay. It's messed up. Why should she have to give 3 more years of her life? And
go ahead.
The social worker who's so intent on that being her fate, even though she can represent, show that she can care for herself. Why are you so intent on that?
She was just hateful. She was this evil person who was so hateful in her prejudice. And I wonder if there was a kickback or something.
Yeah, I'm like, are you just trying to meet a quota?
I think there's a financial incentive to get as many children into... Well, these are labor camps for children. This is free labor, not unlike what happens in some of our prison system today. There are still... there is still forced labor happening. Maybe they're not out, on the chain gangs.
It sounded like it was gonna be real physical hard labor.
Yeah. Then I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
So one of the questions it talks about children, especially rural children, were a valuable commodity to families who needed farm labor without having to pay wages. Society continues to be mostly patriarchal, and during the time in which this novel was set, it was the father who could express emancipation and consent to his child's emancipation. Discuss patriarchal laws and the role they have changed or continue to play in shaping women and children's rights and lives. I think about in the book, for her to be allowed to date, she needed her father's. There's a young man, you're right, who was just crazy about her,
Francis.
but wanted her father's permission. When I know Francis was the one who worked in the store. Yes, he was trying to get her work so she could also work in the store or something like that. Anyway, and I mean, she's just trying to run for her life and trying to stay above the law and hadn't even thought about boys yet. And now here's this boy. I think he was a little too free.
I don't know.
He was a little anxious.
He was so cute. He does steal a kiss, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's so sweet. He's a nice boy.
He is. He still wants her to get permission.
He's cousins with Bonnie. That is his familial connection.
That's right.
And then they have a further back where Francis's grandfather, I think, gave Blewett away at her wedding because her dad's dead or something like that. So there's this family connection, but Francis and Honey don't know each other till now. Yeah, he was a little bit of a whirlwind, but it's sweet. It's very sweet, unlike the other men around Honey and our other women. His boisterousness is all good nature. Yeah. And he is respectful in that he knows he can't really date her until she says she has permission. He's like, have you been able to talk to your father yet? Can you get permission?
I really want to date you.
Yeah,
That was very
it's
sweet.
sweet. I think it's sweet. There's that fine line between stalker and sweet.
Okay, so Honey's interactions with a far more sophisticated Pearl show a glimpse into innocence and youth, the old land waking up to modernism creeping in, and the mountain folk caught between their old hard ways and the new advanced world. Though Honey has been well educated by a bookwoman Cussie, that's her mother's, in writing, reading, and more, her isolated life has held her back in other ways. Honey's new friend Pearl is far ahead of her with modern gadgets, young men, parties, and drinking. Discuss their differences and the women's strengths and vulnerabilities and their adjustments to the new environments. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, I mean, Pearl is not super worldly either. She's just a little more.
A little bit. She's just a couple. Was she a couple years older?
She's 19.
Okay.
She has like more experience of the world. I guess she's just over 3 years older.
She's been to movies.
Yeah, she's been to movies.
Ooh.
She's much more of the time of the book.
Yeah.
But she's still a good girl. But I guess for her time, she's extremely modern. She's a young woman living on her own, doing a job that would conventionally have gone to a man. I mean, so I guess
she's been to college.
Yeah.
I mean, of sorts.
I think it's a training program.
But she still had an education.
Yeah. She's outside her hometown.
She calls her mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she uses a phone. She knows what pajama parties are.
That is really okay. So let's talk about the pajama party, because I thought that was really sweet. That was like, Honey's like, I don't even know if I've got pajamas. What do I do? I've never been.
What do I wear
to a pajama party?
So she puts an exceptionally not too shabby flannel nightie on under her clothes and goes over to her friend's house. And her friend is late getting there, and she gets wet in the rain and cold. And so her friend's like, come on up, after they figure out why she was late, come on upstairs and get warmed up and dried off. And she hands her a different dressing gown that's a spare of hers, that's like silky and soft and a lot more womanly than a flannel pajama or flannel nightgown. And Pearl looks at what she's taken off and she starts laughing at her friend, who doesn't know what to do at a pajama party, let alone what to wear to a pajama party. And her pride gets hurt because her friend's making fun of the fact she put her flannel nightie on and then her clothes over it and rode over.
Well, I also think Pearl she's been able to go to school. She's had social connections that Honey could not go to the regular school. Didn't she go for like a day or something?
I don't know.
Is that something else? No, that was a different book.
Well, also she does see a conventional high school or school with girls her age there while she's working.
Yeah. And
she has this longing, which kind of enriches our understanding that she wanted that but couldn't have it. And that's her parents' protection in play.
Mm-hmm. But she's never had a girlfriend.
Not at all.
She's not had, the closest connection she had was the moonshiner's son, who they were just buds.
Yeah.
Okay, so before I get too far off from that, I thought it was so sweet. I mean, the moonshiner or whatever, what is his name? Is it really Danger Joe? I can't
Jim.
think of
I know
Danger
it's Jim.
It's something Jim. Anyway.
Can I look?
Yeah. Go ahead and look.
Okay.
Tell
us what you think's interesting.
His family cares for Honey and her really cared for Honey and her family. Knew that he was limited in what he could do to look out for her. Couldn't really bring her home to be another mouth to feed, but was
Devil John.
Oh, that's it, Devil John.
Dangerous
Jim, Devil John.
I had you sold on Dangerous Jim, though.
I knew it wasn't quite right, but I couldn't correct you because I didn't know any better.
What's it again? Devil John.
And his son, he's like, no, my son's going to marry. And I thought it was very sweet. His son, who was friends, was like, one of the ways that she could get out of going to the child's prison was either having a guardian, which she no longer had, or to get married.
Child bride.
Child bride. And she's like, I've never even been on a date. I don't know anything about boys, and I don't want to get married, and you have a girlfriend.
Yeah. She'd already seen
and he's
that
like,
he's in love with somebody else.
My dad doesn't know about that.
Yeah.
But but here she knows he doesn't love her. She doesn't want to be in a love. She's barely started her life, and she doesn't.
At that point, she had not kissed a boy.
She had not kissed a boy.
Yeah.
Much less, getting married. And she knew, she's like, no, I don't want to get married. I don't want to be forced. I want to have choices for my life. And everyone else around me is trying to make choices for me. But I did appreciate how very sweet the young man was, because even though he didn't love her that way, he sincerely was afraid that she was going to get sent off, and he did not want anything bad to happen to her.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was...
Carson was a sweet man.
So there was one of the questions does talk about child brides, and
I don't like it.
they're a global problem that can lead to dangerous and devastating consequences. In America, the marriageable age is determined by states. Many still allow child marriages between the ages of 14 to 17 with parental or judicial consent. There are some cases where children have married at age 12 and younger. Whoa,
Boo.
So wrong.
Boo.
Sorry, no way. What are the dangers of being a child bride or groom?
Oh
I mean,
God. Okay, first of all, groom, gross. So a 16 or 17-year-old girl, I could see that you have the agency in some circumstances, because Honey has the agency to say no, thank you.
Yeah.
And there at 17, you're just a minute away from 18. So is there a big difference between 17 and 18? And I think there are some 17-year-olds who have the agency for that to be something they agree to. Anything younger than 16, gross. What is your point? You just want a work, you want a slave and you're into the young people. Gross. You're just looking for domestic help. So unpaid domestic labor. And all that entails.
So as a side spoiler, Honey's mother was forced into a marriage to a 54-year-old man.
Ew. Was that First Daddy?
That was for... No.
No, it's not.
No.
We don't know First Father yet.
No, not yet. But First Father is not Lovett.
No, Moffat is Honey's original parents.
So... She becomes widow. Her mother becomes widow Fraser the night of her wedding.
Oh,
so,
oof! Thank God.
Mostly because his ticker gave out.
Excellent. That is convenient.
Gave out after.
Oh,
so not so convenient. But so there is this. Her father was desperately trying to marry her off because he was sick, and he promised his wife that he wouldn't leave her without protection. He thought it was protecting his daughter. So there's this family thing.
Well, he wasn't wrong. Women without a man to stand in the way in this community,
but the community knew she was a blue, and he was a blue. It was his side of the family that had the blue.
Or
her father. Yes. Honey's grandfather.
Okay.
So just a little something there. Yeah. Okay.
Literally a spoiler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Honey is surprised to find out that Loretta Adams had attended one of Kentucky's moonlight schools, which served the uneducated and the elderly. What do you think it would have been like to learn or teach at a moonlight school? Can you maybe talk a little bit about what was a moonlight school?
Well, I understood it to be a night school held somewhere that people could easily walk to, because the community didn't have access to conventional schoolrooms. So it's an adult education program. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Was it outside? I didn't get that.
I couldn't tell if it was outside or not. I guess
it makes sense. They had to walk to it.
Yeah. I don't know how they could have learned to read.
By the moonlight?
I guess by moonlight. So it depends on only when the weather was good. So it means it would not have been consistent, because there's work and there's life and they all have families, but it was really interesting that because I don't think she understood that Retta could read.
Yeah. Well, and Retta could not read.
She couldn't.
Because she had blindness.
She had blindness.
But she was not illiterate.
But she was not, yeah. But she had squirreled away a lot of stuff. You remember? She had stuff in the walls. Wasn't that it?
I didn't.
Where was it?
She had silver dollars that had her birth year on them.
Oh.
So, Honey thought that was probably something her father squirreled away for her. But I think it was like in a pail or something. Like,
yeah.
Or in a jar or jug.
But it was something that her nephew did not know about, which was good. Because it gave her some financial means.
Well, no, she used that money to bury her and buy the marker.
Which ends up being to her credit.
Yep.
One of the things that speaks to her character when she goes to court, that she arranged everything. She's the one who got the frontier nurse. She tried to take care of her. Okay, quick question. Were you ever into scrapbooking?
No. But those books sounded more like living journals. So,
which is, I don't know what that is.
Like people who they gather ephemera from their day-to-day lives and they make art with that and tell their personal story with that. So what Karen's brought up is that FDR actually did not provide any reading materials for the pack horse libraries. So to have something for people to read, the librarians would make their own scrapbooks, which sound wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I was disappointed, and both disappointed and excited. But if you want to look at those, you can go to FDR's Presidential Library and look at them.
Why should he get credit for that?
I know. It's like it's the program that he funded the program, but he didn't provide for the program.
He shelled out the bucks, but he
somewhere.
Didn't. Yeah, I guess they should be in the individual libraries, I guess. But
well, I don't know. There has to be a centralized place to keep this history.
That's true.
It's sad that the WPA program shut down when FDR died. Because it would be an interesting thing to have. Like, first of all, I think our infrastructure would be better. Arts would be more valued. Literacy and education might be more valued. But it's one of the things that expired with him.
I only have 2 more questions.
Okay.
So, first one, let's discuss the different jobs that Honey, Pearl, Bonnie, did we already talk about the dangers that their individual jobs
Not
faced?
Totally.
And what are unusual jobs women hold today versus years ago?
Well, a woman can pretty much do anything she wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
So let's first have the question.
What's the difference? So Honey's job was to bring reading materials, do the pack horse thing.
Mm-hmm. Pearl is the forestry and fire lookout.
Mm-hmm.
And Bonnie is a
miner.
Which I think of these 3 professions for, librarian, rural educator, forestry agent, and coal miner. I think the coal miner probably persists in being a male-dominated job.
Yeah, I didn't even know that there were women in the mines now. And
I'm sure there are.
But it's just not that. I don't know that. When I went to Line Fort, Kentucky, on a trip, and we were helping people, I never heard of women in the mines. Even in the 80s, mining was a man's job. Women stayed home, took care of the house, they did everything else, but it was not considered a job that women did even then. Mm-hmm. And Amara, I forget which one's Amara.
Amara is the frontier nurse.
Ah, yes. So I think even nursing is. I think, like you said, Bonnie's is probably the job that
of those 3
is still 4 out of the 4 is still unusual
for a woman to be doing it.
Yeah.
But who wants to be a coal miner?
It's hard work.
I know it's family traditions and it provides work in communities that don't have a lot of other choices, but it's a deadly job.
Yeah.
And you're
black lung is a real thing. I knew someone who was dying from that.
You're wrecking the countryside too. Like you're wrecking the countryside that you treasure so much. It's ugly work doing an ugly job.
There's different types of mining. The ugliest part is the strip mining where they're just trashing the outside. Coal mining is deeper in and is more.
Yeah, but it has its problems. Infrastructurally. So like there are cities that collapse. I don't know if that's happened in the U.S., but it happens in the UK that they've been so undermined that the towns are collapsing into
literally sinkholing in.
Yeah, and isn't it a coal? Might not be a coal mine. It might be an oil vein. Is that how oil works? Because it's a vein.
Coal has a vein. Gold has a vein. Silver has a vein.
So minerals, then probably not oil. There's a place in the middle of the U.S. that caught fire and will burn indefinitely. And people had to leave there.
Yeah.
It's an abandoned city because it's on fire.
Wow.
Through the mines. So it's a bummer job to me. I mean, thank God, because it fuels our electrical grid. Mm-hmm. However, it's a bummer.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if your family's in coal mining and I've been offensive.
Last question. Do you think Honey purposely selected books from her personal collection to empower her women patrons?
We never get an answer about that.
What books would you select to empower the underserved or disadvantaged in your area, and why?
Well, this is such an interesting question. I love this question.
See, that's why I saved it for last.
Going to share my social justice project that Kevin planted in my head, but now he doesn't want to do it. All right. So, The Awakening is the book of contention in this story because it's something that she gives to Guy LaBelle.
Is it a real book?
Yes.
I read it.
Now, thank you. Freshman reading. I read it in my Catholic high school.
What? I never even heard of
it. And
before.
in this book, they're calling it sex fiction. Now, it is about sex, and it is about women, and it is about the struggles in a stifling marriage or social situation. And it has a seriously bummer ending.
I can kind of see why the misogynist men in this book would not like their wives reading that.
Yes. Please read Kate Chopin's The Awakening. I want to reread it from its references in this book because I haven't read it since I was in high school. I think I read it twice in high school. Once it was assigned, and then I wanted to do like a cheeky comparison contrast essay about sex and literature when I was in high school. And I love this book. We don't know whose collection it came from because when the librarian gets questioned about the sex literature, she's like, well, in our Kentucky library, we would not condone.
No, it was her mother. It was one of her mother's books. It came from her house.
Okay.
It does talks about it.
I didn't catch that.
She risked going back home to get that out of her house.
All right. I didn't catch that. So it was a private book. Mm-hmm. And she very thoughtfully has presented it to this woman in a bad marriage.
How did she even? I guess she had already read it.
She must have.
She must have.
Yeah.
It was not a big deal in her family.
Well, because her mother. This is how I think books should always be. Like, I don't censor most of the media as far as books and movies that my children want. I look into them and I wait till they're like some things I say you're not old enough for, but I don't say you can't experience this. I want you to wait till you're ready to experience this. So like books shouldn't be censored. Mirabella is 11 years old. If she wanted to read this, which she does not, she can barely get through a graphic novel at this point. Like, if she wanted to read the Awakening, I'd be like, okay, I was going to buy a copy anyway. But let's talk about it, you know? So yeah, I guess she had read it and knew it was appropriate. I had read this book by the time I was Honey's age. Rock on. Good literature exposure.
I feel like being able to pick literature out for someone else shows it shows that you can't just pick out a book for anybody you don't know. You have to get to know that person. And I think there's a certain something that she was taught by her mother of how to know people, how to listen to people. She was a listener. She understood other people. And she knew she figured out how to advocate for herself. I think growing up, her parents must have done drills, to prepare her for, this is what you do in this situation. Yep. So they did not leave her unprepared. They did all they could, knowing that this day would sometime happen.
In so many ways. Yeah. Not only the how to flee, but how to value herself. Like when the doctor says, hey, there's medicines that'll hide that for you. She's like, no, my mom says the medicines are worse than this because it doesn't cause me any pain. And I should never feel ashamed of how I look. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know exactly what I would refer for the community. But because Kevin and I were talking about how scary it is to be a teacher right now. Probably forever and always in all of our nation's history, it's been a little scary to be a teacher with ideas. But books are being banned like no other time.
Yeah.
And even mentioning that the book exists, forget about talking about what it might contain, is dangerous in a lot of places right now.
They can't even mention the title?
You say the 1619 Project in a school right now, and you're risking your job.
Wow.
So I would like to build and you all can, anyone listening, whether or not you stock it with the 1619 or any other stories that tell the true history of our country, I would like to build little libraries throughout our community and stock them with these books that are on the firing squad right now and being banned. So I would like to collect the current banned book list from, I don't know, Texas.
LeVar Burton. He tells you all the good stuff to read.
And I want to start building tiny libraries and stocking them with them.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just have a banned book library.
Yeah.
These are the things that people have decided that you cannot read. What does it say about them that they're making that decision for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think there are some books in this world that have been written with the intent of hurting the world. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to experience those books.
But those books are not the ones on the banned book list.
No, they're not. And there's something to getting into the mind and understanding the mind of someone you don't agree with. But you have to be careful to not let yourself be poisoned by those ideas, too. So for most part, I don't believe in censorship. Thoughtful choices in what you expose your brain to, which you can really only decide for yourself or someone thoughtfully selecting for you. Do you guys want to come over and build tiny libraries? Kevin says, I got so excited and wild in the eyes, he backed away slowly. But it feels so grassroots and like totally approachable. And even affordable.
Do you guys have that in your neighborhood where you have the book box?
I don't, and I live across the street from some people. I'd be afraid of what they do to my library. So,
there's.
So that's the other thing. We got into like what it would really be like. Like you'd probably have to put a Ring camera on it so that it is observed.
Yeah, my neighbors would not. We would not agree on book choices at all.
Well, it's not necessarily for them. So, and you can put it anywhere, like on a little piece of public land, even.
What if you put it like where people had a code?
A code.
It was like you put in the code, you could like it. I don't know. Maybe it's too selective, less community minded. But well, thank you for discussing my book with me. I highly...
This is fantastic.
Yeah, so The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek.
I can't wait to read it.
That isn't... I highly suggest that. It's one of those... She told the story so well that I cared about the characters from the get-go. There was not a dull moment. I don't think so. If it was so fleeting because they moved on to the next thing.
Yeah, I would say there was not a dull moment.
I want a rooster and I want a mule.
I don't want either thing. I mean, I would like chickens right now because eggs are so hard to come by of late, which is so distressing.
But chickens aren't laying eggs right now because it's too cold outside.
It's
cold.
true.
Yeah.
Oh, you can heat their roost.
Well, yeah, I know, but like it's tis the season for them to be like low
to
on their
suck.
because
Yeah.
my
They're supposed
sister
to
is
rest.
our egg supply, and she's like, my chickens aren't doing their job right now.
I was talking to some friends who keep chickens, and it was like their first year of keeping chickens, and I was curious how it was going for them. And I was like, oh, and they like I think they got each of their girls a chick, and the 3 chickens were laying more eggs than their family of, I don't know if they were 5 or 6 at that point, but their large family could eat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we were talking about it in the winter, and they were telling me about how it slowed down, and you could do that. You could get them to lay by heating their roost. But there's something wrong to me, ovulate.
Yeah,
so I can eat your egg.
No, to eat your unformed babies.
It's like, well, it's not fertilized.
Unformed. That's what I
Yeah. Oh, unformed. I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. It was just like the command to make another living creature ovulate so that I can prosper from it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel sisterly.
Awesome. Who is next for our book?
Well, what else has anybody read this month?
Yeah.
Well, as I shared before, I was enjoying some holiday romances. So I guess there's a new romance novelist that I might need to keep reading. Cody Hall. Have you read any of that, Katie?
I haven't. I don't think.
So she got a deal in 2020 to write 3 novels for Audible as Audible Originals. And they follow this family that lives in Mistletoe, Idaho, which I do not think is a real place. And there are 3 children who are adults now, born around Christmas. Nick, Mary, Merry, and Holly. And each of the 3 novels tells their love story. And they're all a little different how they fall in love. Like it's best friends become lovers. It's the quiet boy next door and the energetic girl next door. And then the last one is enemies become lovers. And they're all adorable. All 3 of them.
That sounds fun.
So cute. So it was Nick and Noel's Holiday Playlist was the first one. There's Something About Mary, and Along Came Holly for the 3. And they are very cute.
That's Something About Mary. Is that the one they made the movie about?
No, it's a wordplay.
Oh.
And one of the things I'm liking about this author is her books are very much of the time. Like, she makes cultural references that are very current and probably won't age well.
But it's fun to read at the moment.
It is. Yeah. And especially, or maybe they will. Like, I keep wondering, because the books are fun and the story paces are good and the hot parts are hot and it's all engaging and cute. So maybe they will age well. Who knows? But she just makes a lot of like current references, especially Nick and Noel's Holiday Playlist actually has like holiday, like a playlist you could follow of current music, as well as some good older songs. And that is all that I listened to other than this book. I was grateful. I listened to this book, The Bookwoman's Daughter, at 1.25. Like, I wasn't making a joke about that when I suggested it. Because, and I think it was fine because it's Kentucky people. And what I mean by that, Kentucky people, is that in Kentucky, I think they have a slower drawl and pace of speaking.
So pacing, it makes it more like California.
A little bit. Like, I did not miss, it didn't feel rushed. Like, sometimes when you increase the speed on the books, it's like, clip, 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 go, go, go.
They sound a little angrier if they have any passion.
This sounded just like right. The normal speed I'd like to listen to. This is the speed I want to talk to people. I spoke to someone in Mississippi today, and she talked at
You just wanted her to get her words out.
Pace. And it took a while to just know who she wanted to talk to. You probably like triple that for normal.
Okay, that would make me crazy.
Well, I didn't have to have the bulk of the conversation with her. I just had to get her to the right person. So that's what I read lately. Anybody else?
Katie, what did you read?
I have not read anything.
Okay, keep in mind, we had the holidays.
Yes,
There's a lot going on.
Did just happen. and I did not listen to anything until we were flying home on New Year's Day, and that book was getting to the hot part, and it was like that kind of moment where you don't want your
You're like double checking that your headphones are actually plugged in.
Yeah. Please don't fail me now. Don't disconnect now. Okay.
I don't know if these are books I started new books, but I know I finished 3 books.
We didn't let you talk about the books you were looking forward to, so I bet you did not talk about these books.
I did talk about books last time.
You did, but we didn't let you talk about the ones you hadn't read yet.
Oh,
so just the ones
you
that you
had
finished.
A tall stack of things you were looking forward to that looked good.
Yeah, they're still in my office. I haven't started that physical book. I did. So I finished 3 books. Rebel Sisters by Tochi Onyebuchi, which is a 2-part. There's 2 books, so this was the second of a sequel, and it's a Afrofuturism in Nigeria.
Nice.
So that one was really good. I finished The Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin, which was part of the not Grishaverse, because that's a different author.
No, but she has a new book out that was released on the 10th.
That one I finished last night.
Leigh Bardugo?
Oh, Leigh Bardugo has a new one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
but I'll talk
tell
about
me that in a
next
minute.
month.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, tell it next month. Okay.
I can't talk about books I haven't read. That's the
That's
rule.
right. And I finished Kaikei by Vaishnave Patel. And that was really, really good.
That sounded interesting when I heard you listening to it.
Yes, I have the hardcover, not the hardcover, but I have the paper version. If you want to read it, it's definitely. But I do want it back.
I'm not. You're not allowed to lend me books. I don't treat people's books nicely. Just
okay,
that's a general,
I will highly recommend it to you.
Warning that Anne has to buy her own copy or listen to it on Audible.
Gotcha.
I did treat my small angels well enough that I gifted it to my mother-in-law.
Oh, there you go.
And she's excited because I phrased it. I think you guys would appreciate how I phrased it. She's the one who gave me her copy of The Witches of New York. And I feel like Small Angels is the same kind of like world I want to go back to and be in again and again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think she's going to like that book.
Well, my turn to pick our next book. I found this when I was thumbing through, I think it was an issue of the Ventura Breeze.
All right, Breeze!
From a while ago. And it is a collection of 3 short stories set in a fictionalized version of Ventura.
That sounds fun.
I know, and it was on my list of like, I really want to read this. And then I lost that issue of The Breeze, and it took me a while to remember what the name of the book was. So I have found it again.
Yay!
So it is How to Make Paper When the World is Ending by Dallas Woodburn.
How to make paper
when the world is ending. So the little blurb that it has here says, from the award-winning author of the dazzling and magnificent debut novel, The Best Week That Never Happened, comes a luminous new collection of short stories that deftly examines, explores, and reimagines the ghost story, How to Make Paper When the World is Ending. A couple sets off on their first long weekend together with romantic or murderous intentions. A recently divorced father attempts to jumpstart his life by performing as John Legend in a Beatles cover band. A young woman becomes obsessed with a sweepstakes contest in the wake of her roommate's sudden death. How to Make Paper When the World is Ending features literal ghosts, spiritual ghosts, charming ghosts, ghosts that are dead ends, and ghosts that are still living, the ghosts of what might yet be and the ghosts of what have been. How is each of us shaped by what haunts us? So when I read that blurb in The Breeze, I was like, I want to read this book because it sounds exciting and that it's a local author and it's set in a fictionalized version of the town that we're in, which I thought was pretty cool.
What's the author's name again?
Dallas Woodburn. And I don't think it's available as an audiobook, sadly, but it is 3 short stories, so I can't imagine it's a very big book, but I don't have a physical copy of it yet.
You can probably get that at a Timber.
You can. I was just looking on their website. You can order it from Timber if you want, or I think it's available digitally as well. So that is my choice for our next book.
Exciting.
And I want to remind everybody really quick before we end that we have a Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/stringsunraveled, you can find out all about our benefits and different tiers. If you want to support us in the podcast, we would love to have you over there. So that's patreon.com/stringsunraveled. There's a link in our link tree in our Instagram bio if you want to just click on something and not have to remember that. But I think that's it for us tonight. So we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Strings Unraveled is a production of Strings and Things Studio with Anne Lekravin-Cazzoli, Katie Von Rader-Fraker, and Karen Wilmoth. Recorded and edited by Katie Von Rader-Fraker. Find us online at stringsandthingsstudio.com or on Facebook or Instagram at Strings and Things Studio. You can email us at stringsandthingsinfo@gmail.com.